Hey guys, welcome back to Clownfish TV. This is Neon. I am here with Geeky Sparkles.
Hello.
And good news, everybody. Comics are just fine. They're just fine. Everything is great. Everything is fantastic in the comic book industry. No, actually, things are terrible. Things are awful. Things are not good.
Are you allowed to say that? Because then you're going to get articles saying that you're full of crap.
You said the comic book industry was hurting. You must be alt-right.
I know, right?
So this is coming from Bleeding Full. They got it from ComicsPRO that comic book retailers experienced massive sales declines last year. I know a bunch of comic book shops went out last year. There's all kinds of chaos with distribution, and there's just not a lot of stuff out there that's interesting to people, right? So they're not buying it. And I have to wonder how long, especially in the case of Marvel and DC, how long until Disney or Warner just pulls a plug and outsources everything or cuts back on it or something, right? Now, this is the part where you've got people who have been defending comics fiercely, like, you know, the Heidi McDonald's or whatever, and they jump into it and they're like, but manga's doing great, and so Scholastic. It's like, we're not talking about manga and Scholastic. They're using manga and Scholastic and Webtoon and even crowdfunding sales to prop up the sales figures for comics, but it's pretty bad. I mean, it's pretty damn bad, and we're going to talk about how bad it is. So brace yourselves, guys. This is why we don't talk about comic books very much on the channel anymore, even though we publish comic books. We don't talk about them because there aren't enough people interested in the comic book industry. I mean, let's be honest. Like, there's not, other than like the Energon universe and making fun of the new X-Men run, there's like nothing to talk about in the comic book industry. Oh, comic book pros are being crazy again, and they're talking politics and asking for money. That's, you know, that's pretty much it. That's pretty much it. So let's talk about this. Before we get into it any further, please subscribe for more pop culture news, views, and rants. You get a woohoo if you do. That wasn't very enthusiastic. She can't even muster enough of a woohoo to give a woohoo about the comic book industry.
Sorry, I was drawing.
Okay, what are you drawing?
Just little faces and shapes because I was bored. Anyway, continue.
Oh, I thought, okay, that's, yeah.
I was drawing penises. No, I wasn't.
You're so checked out from comics, and Geeky's over there. Normally, she pays attention mostly to the videos. But she's over there like drawing, like, I don't even care about comics. I'm just gonna draw.
It's like,
shit.
oh look, comics suck again. Shocker. You know?
I wish I could muster up enough give a shit. Like, I love comics. I love talking about older comics. I like talking about older comic book runs and, you know, stuff I read growing up, and it's just like there's nothing to get excited about except Energon Universe, which is pretty good. But I want to clear the air here real quick, and I feel betrayed. I did a whole video talking about how Boom was no longer going to do Power Rangers comics. And it was just a sales gimmick because they're doing a Power Rangers Prime #1 in November. Oh, we're ending Power Rangers, guys. You better buy the last issue of Power Rangers. It's all over.
That's desperation right there, man.
Nope. We got another #1 coming out. This is why people get so freaking pissed. And then this blows my mind too. IDW and Paramount signed a 5-year deal. Is that right? A 5-year deal for Star Trek again.
But that's because it's cheap and no one cares.
It's got to be cheap.
Oh, but notable writers like Patton Oswalt. Well, immediately I'm out.
Oh my God.
Contribute to Star Trek 500's diverse and engaging narratives. You see, you say Patton Oswalt, I'm checked out because I think he's the biggest blowhard full of shit. Him and, you know, Will Wheaton can just, you know, have a party and I'll just be happy to not be there.
God, look at this who's who of who's causing trouble on social media and comics. We got Mags Visaggio.
Oh my God, are you serious?
Right, and yeah, Star Trek 500.
It's basically whoever's cheap.
Pretty much. So I'm thinking, because I'm like, I don't even think IDW, that's a multi-year agreement, right? Yeah. I don't think that they're going to be in business. Oh, no, through 2025. I was like, yeah, there's no way in hell they're going to be in business in 5 years. So through 2025. So a couple of years. We don't even know where Paramount's at, right? Like, Paramount is getting gobbled up by Skydance. And I think everything's cheap. I think they probably just extend the license because they're like, yeah, we don't know what's going to happen. But we'll take whatever money you give us. So you want to do some more shitty Star Trek comics? Good luck with it.
It'll probably live long and prosper or something. I doubt it.
I don't think so. But let's talk about this. This whole thing started, I guess, with comic book retailers talking about the drop in sales, and then it made way to
they keep talking about it, and everybody keeps saying that they're full of it, and then they keep talking about it again and again. It's like, guys, guess what? It went down even more. Shocker.
So this year, ComicsPRO actually met in Pittsburgh. I think this is the second or third year in a row they met in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh will actually give you a very distorted view of the comic book industry, because we actually have a lot of shops in Pittsburgh, which is, compared to other parts of the country, there's a lot of shops, and comic book culture is very big in Pittsburgh. So it gives you a very distorted view of where things are at. I'd say the only other town I can think of that probably has as much comic book culture would be Portland, for better or for worse. But there's a lot going on in Pittsburgh. We have a lot of pros in Pittsburgh. People that have come from Pittsburgh. Jim Shooter is from Pittsburgh. I went for a day, and I could tell, you could tell the people that were retailers from the,
yes,
because they were older guys, and they just seemed like despondent. They just were very quiet and very reserved and very I want to hear some good news, because I've been holding on by my fingertips. But we've had a lot of shops go out that have been in business for decades, just in the last couple of years, 2-3 years. I mean, we're talking shops that have been around for 40 years, just going out of business. The shop that started Free Comic Book Day, which is one of the shops I used to go to when I lived in California, Flying Colors, they called it, they packed it in, they called it a day.
I mean, we're talking about people that made it to the 90s, and then they're still they're shutting down now.
Yeah. So this is coming from Denver. Yeah. In the 90s, there was a huge crash. And I remember we had, when I was a kid in my hometown, we had 4 comic shops, and they were all doing pretty well. And then the crash happened, and we went down to 1 or 2. And I remember the pickings being real slim back then. But this is from Denver. They said they talked to ComicsPRO's executive director, Marco Davanzo. They said the sales, 54% of retailers reported gross sales of $300,000 or less in 2023. So gross sales, we're not talking, we're talking total sales, total amounts of money moved through the shop before taxes.
Is that before is that the money you make with profit, or is that include
No, that's your gross sales. So
that doesn't include your expenses. It doesn't include your, how much you paid for the stuff.
Right. So you might spend $275,000 to bring in $300,000. So you've got a $25,000 margin, and then you got your taxes, your employees. A lot of these shops, they either don't have employees, just the owner running it or whatever. They don't pay their people very much because they can't afford to. 54% of retailers reported gross sales of $300,000 or less in 2023, while 18% reported gross sales over $1 million.
But again, you have to remember, they don't get to keep that. They're probably going to get to keep a quarter to a third to a quarter of it, if that, after they do everything else.
Right. And that's people don't understand. They don't understand how the business works. They really don't. They're it's kind of the same with when people look at crowdfunding numbers. They're well, that person just made $1 million on Kickstarter. I'm yeah, well, what if they have to spend $800,000 in production and shipping? And taxes, and you don't see that. So they might have only pocketed maybe $200,000, and that's got to be split 10 different ways,
right, Yeah.
So it's you don't understand what it costs to actually make this stuff. They said overall sales were down in 2023. The majority of comic book stores, 69%, reported lower gross sales in 2023 than 2022. But that's okay. We got Star Trek 500 coming.
Thank God. Patton Oswalt
and Mags are going to save the industry. A bright spot is that 22% of stores reported higher sales in 2023 than 2022. Now, this is misleading because, again, we're talking gross sales of what? Are we talking all merchandise? Are we talking back issues? Are we talking manga? Are we talking nerd tchotchkes? Are we talking tabletop games? Are we talking Funko Pops?
Right. And wasn't it down, though, in 2021, 2022? Yeah. So coming back up to normal isn't a win either.
Yeah. When comparing 2023 sales to 2019 pre-pandemic, fewer stores experienced a sales decline. Well, the pandemic shook out a lot of the weaker stores. It did. A lot of stores that were already kind of on the fence about, they noped out. 54% of comic stores reported lower gross sales in 2023 than in 2019. Comics are doing better than ever, guys. Sales of new comics were down in 70. Okay, so this is where it gets really important because, again, we're not talking back issues. We're not talking action figures. We're not talking all this nerd stuff. The comic shops now are basically geek flea markets, right? They sell a lot of stuff, and the majority of the stuff that most of them sell, they're not comic books. They're selling graphic novels. They're selling toys.
Yeah.
They're selling cards. They're selling tabletop games. There's, whatever's like nerd adjacent. Some of them are selling video games, Lego sets, Funko Pops. They're not selling just straight up comic books. And when I was a kid, you went to the comic book shop, 95% of the merch is just long boxes full of comic books. And then they had the occasional statues and stuff in the front. They said sales of new comics were down 73% in 2023 versus 2022. Well, graphic novel sales were down 65%, with a decline of between 1 and 50% reported. That's not good.
No.
That's not good.
Even the guy who has one of the largest comic book retailers said he was down.
Yeah, Mile High Comics. I used to buy from Mile High. They used to advertise Marvel Comics, and you could actually mail in. So you would like send them a check, and you'd write it. I remember writing my lists out. Like I want X-Force number, this, that, whatever, and I want this, and then I'd mail them a money order or a check, and like a week later, I'd get my stuff.
Okay, now read the paragraph below.
Okay.
After he says he has one of the biggest shops. Now read this.
Okay, this is Mile High Comics, right? Big, huge shop. Our gross sales today are less than our gross sales were when we bought the building in 2011. That's because we voluntarily abandoned the new comic book model, got out of that business as much as possible, and we focus on collector items, where we're not buying them through distributors. We're not buying them from the publishers. We're just buying them from people. This is happening a lot. In fact, in Pittsburgh, some of the shops, they look more like pawn shops than they do comic book stores, but they're buying collections from people. They're buying, like, they'll buy an entire comic book collection or an entire toy collection because that's about the only way you can make a profit. Because it's just the distribution now, and it's all over the place. It's not like you're dealing just with Diamond, but you're also dealing with God, I don't even know, what is it? Lunar is one of them, and Penguin Random House, and it's just like you get to a point where it's like I'm not making anything.
Well,
like,
keep reading.
Okay. He said he worked in the comic book retail side of things for 54 years. He believes that there are a few factors why comic book sales have been on a decline. One reason being core comic book readers are aging out. Younger comic book readers prefer to consume comics on devices rather than purchasing a physical copy.
Yeah, and they also like things like webtoons.
Yes. Or they're buying manga. Like manga's popular and it's cheap. Manga's the closest to what I used to pick up. I'd just on a whim, I'd pick up a 75-cent dollar issue or whatever of a comic on the newsstand. It was cheap. And now it's like, $10 for manga. It's black and white, but they don't care. I don't think that the comics business is in any kind of mortal danger or dead or anything like that. I think the local comic shops are still doing a great job of delivering them. Yeah,
doesn't mean they're making money, though.
Yes, things are down a little bit from right after COVID, but they're not doing bad.
Tell us all the ones that shut down.
Tell us all the ones that shut down. Mile High Comics is bigger, but he's even admitting he's not buying new comics.
So wait, he changed his whole business model to not rely on comics, but then says, "Oh, but it's fine."
I don't.
Am I getting understand this correctly?
Yes. I believe. And look at his shop. This is Mile High Comics. Where are the comic books? Funko Pops, Transformers.
I think in the above picture there might be
some Hello Kitty over here.
I saw the Hello Kitty. I was like,
oh my God, there's a clownfish.
I know, right? I saw it. I was like, I wasn't going to say anything.
He must be all right. No, I used to buy a lot from them. Like I bought a lot. Like if I couldn't find it at my local shop, I used to always mail into Mile High Comics, and I love getting that box full of comics. And it was always like back issues I couldn't get reasonably priced at like the local shops because it was like a 2-month-old copy of X-Force, and they would want like 5 times cover price for it. And they were like, "Oh yeah, we got it for like cover price still." So it was pretty cool. But yeah, it's just not doing good. I'm sorry. I mean, they're pointing out that when you've got the guy who runs Mile High Comics saying we're not even buying new comics anymore. But comics are fine. I'm like,
See,
no,
there's comics in the back wall there.
oh, okay, there's some. But it's not a mile high
And
anymore.
then there's a bunch of toys and stuff in front of it.
yardshighcomics.com. That's what you call it. But I mean, even around here, like I said, you go to a lot of these comic shops and it's barely comics.
Plus, like you said, they sell online.
Yes.
And it was, people go get what they want there. If their comic shop's too expensive, you said they would go there. So, I mean, that explains it too, why he's still doing okay and other people aren't.
Yeah. But I mean, this is, at least he's still in business, but the comic shops that stay in business, they pivot to becoming, I guess, just call it the geek bodega or geeky. We used to call comic book conventions geek flea markets because that's kind of what they became. But
And celebrity petting zoos. Yes. First they became geek flea markets where just people were just selling all kinds of geek shit, handmade shit, whatever, sell used shit, all kinds of shit. And fudge in Pittsburgh. Which can be mistaken for shit.
Yes.
Or it can give you shit.
Yes, it depends. Pittsburgh, no, this is a side tangent. Pittsburgh comic conventions are unique in the fact that we always have fudge wars.
They do have fudge wars.
Multiple fudge vendors, and they are nasty. They get in fights. They don't want to be next to each other, but like you get your comic books and then you get your hunk of fudge. And then
They
you go
still do the fudge so much now, though.
I don't know. I know that there was a big, I forget which con it was, but there was a throwdown with the fudge vendors.
Was it Steel City?
Was it Steel City?
I don't remember. It's been
I don't know.
years.
They probably got rid of the fudge vendors to make room for more celebrities because that's what they keep doing.
They keep shrinking Artist Alley to make room for more celebrities.
Pretty much, yeah. Like, no, we don't need your whatever artist. Like, it's so weird. Artist Alley, like, you very seldom will you see people selling comic books in Artist Alley. It's all prints and tchotchkes and, it's just it's a weird industry. But everybody is just kind of like lumping quote unquote comics into this whole geek culture thing, and it barely has anything to do with comics. I remember we went to the one anime convention and we were literally in the Artist Alley, the only people selling comic books.
Oh yeah.
The only people selling comic books. Nobody else was selling comics. And I'm like, what kind of convention is this? Like when I start going to conventions, everybody had zines and everybody had their own self-published stuff and everybody wanted to publish books. And now it's like,
when I went to conventions, I got photographed and grabbed.
You did. Yes. Yes, I wasn't real happy with that. Anyway,
sorry, continue.
You did get grabbed, yes. And then that one guy dressed like a dragon wanted you to play with his horn.
Yes. I was cute though, so.
You're very cute.
I look like a booth baby, but no, because that was before all the girls were cosplaying, going to conventions, and hardly any women shop unless they were in flannel. And I did not know that and wore a mini skirt, platform shoes, and a shirt because I was trying to show off for my boyfriend.
Who's your boyfriend?
You.
Oh, yeah.
And then I got a lot of free stuff, though. They give you all kinds of free stuff when you're pretty. And I went in there and yeah.
I give you free stuff. I think you're pretty.
Good save. No, but like, yeah. I got photographed often. It was a weird experience.
You know what's really awkward is, I'm not going to go into details, but like one of those guys who hit on her back in the day, wound up being a professional comic book creator, and I would like send him out to San Diego to get me free stuff, and I'm like, hey, yeah, I never did bring up that you were like hitting on my girlfriend.
That's okay.
And he was married at the time too. I was like, that was really weird. Anyway, yeah, comics. You're not going to make a living in comics if you're just making comics, selling comics. Rather, I think you can make a living at it if you're making them. But yeah. Everything's changing. I'm sorry. Comics are not fine. They're not fine. It's not okay. But we already knew that. We're going to wrap this up.
Yeah. I stopped drawing.
Okay. What, did it turn out okay?
I was just making little shapes and stuff.
Okay. All right. There you go. Well, don't put them in a comic book and sell them because nobody's going to buy it.
I'm sure they're not. Are we wrapping this up for the
We're wrapping this up. Please subscribe. We'll talk later.
Bye.